It is a weird day. Uh, I am sitting here at home because where I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the whole society seems to just be shut down. And my kids' school has actually been canceled. Actually, all of the schools in the state of Michigan are completely canceled until like mid-April. And so there's no school. I went to a restaurant yesterday and it was just like a ghost town, like it's all shutting down. And I just wanted to pop on here right now. I was going to make like a nice video with my nicer camera and talk about it, but I just feel like it would be a little bit more. I just wanted to sit down and talk about it right now, about like what it means to be a teacher during a time of crisis. And I'm no expert on this, and so please nobody misinterpret it that way. But I have been a student and a teacher now through quite a few different crises. I remember being a high schooler during 9/11. And being in second hour when the towers were hit and when they fell, and it was just chaos, and they didn't release school and nobody knew what was going on. And I remember going into my third hour class. So we left second hour, went into third hour, and the teacher wouldn't put on the TV. He wouldn't let us get any news updates, wouldn't let us talk about it. I could see him. He was just nervous and fidgeting and panicking like anybody would do in that situation. Like there was this degree of unknown, and he was scared and he didn't know how to act and don't know how to process. And I remember being a young boy, just a high school kid. I remember sitting there feeling like, okay, if he's scared, if this adult who I look up to, who, he has this captive audience of students, if he is freaking out like this, then maybe I should be freaking out like him, right? Like his attitude became my attitude. His fear became my fear. And then later that day, I went to my next class, or it was like fifth hour. I don't know. I remember that, but I bet you remember that day too. I remember going to fifth hour, and I walk in, and the teacher is just standing there, and he said, and it was band class. He says, "Don't even take your instruments out. We're just going to talk today." So we got into a circle, and then for that entire class period, we just had a big, long discussion about what it means to come together in times of crisis like this. And he said, "Yeah, I'm afraid." And he was honest about that. He said, "But also I'm coming up with a plan about what I'm going to do with my family and how we're going to get through this time and how do you react in this." And I remember him, Mr. Trapp, just being calm. And what's interesting, as a 15-year-old boy, I remember his calm became my calm, right? Like his order and the way that he was processing and just calmly assessing this very serious situation. It was serious. It was 9/11. This was on September 11th, but his calm, his peace and tranquility became all of his students' peace and tranquility. That is the power of a captive audience. I remember when my high school was knocked over by a hurricane, my senior year of high school. It went through the ringer. My whole high school was knocked down, and I had to go to school. I had to live in a FEMA trailer the rest of senior year, and my whole high school took place in portables. And I remember that the teachers set the tone for how everybody reacted to it. I mean, this was in Florida, often without electricity and air conditioning, and we had to go to school in little trailers, and this is a 3,000 person school, and yet the teachers, just like they were honest. They showed that they were processing. They were still dealing with the insecurity and the instability of a crisis, but they were doing it in a way that this peace and calm resonated and exuded to everybody else. And I'll never forget that. Their calm became our calm. Like as a high school teacher during the Parkland shootings, I remember kids coming to school in stress and distress and not knowing what to do with this. And they were living in fear, and rightfully so. It was crisis mode. But I remember as a teacher during that time, it was about like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's come up with plans. Let's have conversation. Like, yes, I'm scared too. As a teacher, this freaks me out too. But how can I show what how can I show what a healthy dealing of anxiety looks like? How can I show you that I'm human? But it's also possible to be calm in situations like this. And so now, as we are dealing with something we haven't dealt with before as educators or as a society, as a globe, How do we approach the classroom in a way that our students know that these educators in their lives, these adults in their lives, who are just this constant mode of stability every single day, no matter what the world looks like, they get to come and be with us. How do we help them see that we can be calm in times like this? We still get to be anxious. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't feel like this is a call for teachers to be like, oh, let's just hide all of our fear. Let's just get rid of any kind of like trepidation we have, any kind of worries. I think there's space for all of that. I really do. But then also at the same time, how do we show our students what calm looks like, how we can work under this pressure? Let's just be honest. If you are an educator, you know what it means to work under pressure, right? You've done it before. You might not have had to deal with this crisis, but if you've been a teacher for any amount of time, you've dealt with crisis, right? You have dealt with micro versions of this in a way, and you've been there. You've got it. You've got some of that secret sauce that comes from those experiences. And so I just think the question that we just need to be asking ourselves is, how do we take that wisdom that we've gained from this career and give it to our students, right? How do we do it in that way? And I don't have the answers to that, other than just, I think we have to be intentional about thinking about how do we want to present the way we're feeling with our students. Just in the same way that my teacher did in 9/11 and during the just all the other crises we've dealt with as a country and as a people and as teachers. How do we approach this work in that way? So, yeah, I don't know. My family, we're working on a plan right now. We're working with some friends and talking about how are we going to keep our kids educated and engaged the next few weeks, with 4 weeks at home, with a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. What are we going to do? And so we're coming up with a plan. We're processing. We're figuring it out. I think it's important, if you're still in school, that you show students that you know how to process that way too, and they can as well, and you can be the model for them. So anyway, I don't think this was a soapbox that I'm up on, but I'll get off of it now. But anyway, I hope that you can find peace in this time. I hope you can find some rest. I hope that you can feel the way you need to feel and feel the way that you actually feel, but then also know that we can get through this because we've gotten through stuff before. I am so grateful for teachers, that you are this constant, in your students' lives, and that's a big deal, and that means something. So thanks for being that. Thanks for being with kids during this time of crisis. I believe that we will get through this as a country, and we're going to get through it better. And I'm hoping that with all the division going on in our country right now, this might, not that I want it to be this that brings us together, but I'm hoping it brings us together, and I think teachers can help lead that charge. So anyway, thank you, my friends. Good luck with everything. I'll see you lots more on here because I'm not going anywhere. Woo! All right.